สวัสดีค่ะ Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen and we are back from quarantine. Yay! I have missed the set. Vancouver has started to allow small gatherings of people, and this is definitely a small gathering of people. It's just me and Adam in this place. So now that we are back, I am so excited to do this video, which I have wanted to do for a long time, a rice cooker comparison. Yes, we're going to compare the performance of a cheap $30 drugstore rice cooker versus a fancy $200 rice cooker that is highly rated on the internet. It's supposed to be one of the best rice cookers. If you're serious about your rice, you are supposed to have one of these. So we're gonna find out if that's true. I have it. I want to know if it was worth my money. We're also going to compare all that against your stovetop method. So if you don't cook rice very often, maybe you don't need a rice cooker at all if it comes out all the same. We're all gonna find out. It's all very exciting. All right, let's get started. So let me give you a bit of context for this video. So growing up in Thailand, rice cookers to us was the most basic thing. Mine didn't even keep it warm. It turned itself off. So very much like Adam's rice cooker, which is this cute little guy here. Adam got this from Hong Kong. How many years ago now?
30?
30 years ago.
Japanese.
He's dating himself. I don't know if you can get something like this anymore. It's got an aluminum pot, which nowadays you can't really find. Most of them are coated in nonstick coating. So for a long time, I didn't have a rice cooker. I just used stovetop. And then when I finally got one, I got this one. For me, if it cooks rice, it's good enough. This one even keeps the rice warm. My God, a function I didn't have. But then because it's Teflon coated, it started to get scratches, which generally happens. I blame those 2 scratches on my husband. I decided it was time to get a new one. And during this time, I started to, I became aware of these fancy rice cookers. And I thought, okay, if there's something out there that has the potential to improve the quality of my rice, I want to know. So today we're going to do a taste test. We're going to do a blind comparison between all of these 3. We're going to do stovetop, this one, and this one. This one, we don't need to. It's basically the same things, these 2. And then we'll find out whether I wasted my money or it was money well spent. So let's take a closer look at these 2 machines. I'm just going to do a quick feature walkthrough so we get an idea of how they differ. In the red corner, we've got a machine that can cook and keep warm. The end. It's a very simple machine, as I said. Now, for the Zoji, we've got lots of different functions for different types of rice. Not only that, for white rice, you've got 3 different firmnesses, regular, soft, or harder, depending on your taste, all requiring the same amount of water, by the way. And speaking of water, let's take a look at the inner pot. So you've got 6 different lines for 6 different types of rice. Now, there are actually 7 lines, but you've got 2 lines for white rice so that you can see it whichever angle you are looking at the pot. Because white rice is presumably what you're going to cook most of the time. The shape of this pot is nicely rounded, so it's not like a straight angle like a regular pot. It's a lot easier to fluff the rice with your spatula. There's no angles. It's also a lot easier to clean. The con of this shape also is that if you're used to using the knuckle method, it doesn't apply because this bowl shape means that the water will fall at now a different place. Another cool thing about this pot is it's got these plastic handle that stays relatively cool when you need to remove the pot out. This is my favorite feature right here. I am willing to pay quite a bit of money for this extra feature, the retractable cord. It stores neatly, and when you need it, you pull it out, and then it just stays however long you pull it out, and then when you're done, off it goes back. It stores neatly. This red one, on the other hand, just has this dangly cord that doesn't store anywhere, doesn't go anywhere, and it's really quite annoying for storage. It's even Adam's little 30-year-old rice cooker has better than that. It has a cord that detaches altogether, so you can just unplug it and then store it inside the pot when you're done. This can't even do that. Let's look at the lid. This is an important function as well. This lid seals really well, so the rice can stay warm and moist for up to 20 hours. With this one, yes, there's a keep warm function that'll stay on. However, with this loose glass lid and this big hole for steam, I do find that after a few hours, the top of the rice will start to dry out. Some minor feature that's nice. The rice paddle that comes with the Zoji is the best I've ever seen anywhere. It's nice and sturdy, and it also has these little stubs that prevents the rice from sticking to the paddle when it's done. Now, it also has a little space to put the rice paddle neatly. For the red one, it came with this really flimsy little rice paddle that is smooth, so the rice does stick on here. And you could technically just put it there. However, if the paddle has been used and there's rice sticking on it, now the only way to get it out one-handed is for you to grab this part, which is not ideal. So then you have to do one of these. So, it's not as good of a user experience. I mean, clearly these people have thought through where to put this paddle to make it the most sensible. So as you can see, for this machine, you are paying for a lot of sleek, nice user experience. And there is one more feature that I absolutely love, which we will find out when we go to cook the rice. So now I want to talk a little bit more about all these different settings, but first we have to understand how rice cookers actually work. So at the very basic level, the only difference between a pot and a rice cooker is a rice cooker knows when it's time to turn itself off. And it knows that by the fact that once the water runs out, the bottom of the pot will get significantly hotter. And then when the temperature rises, it goes, oh, no more water in here. Let's turn off or switch to keep warm mode, whatever it decides to do. Now, with a simple cooker like this, that's all it does. Now, with the fancy cooker, depending on the mode that you choose, it'll vary sort of the time and the temperature that it uses to cook that rice. So for example, if you chose porridge, obviously it's not gonna wait until the water is gone to turn off because then you wouldn't have porridge. So probably it's just gonna go by time. One very important thing to note about this machine is just looking at the menu, you kind of get the idea that this was created for Japanese rice, which is short grain rice. These are lines for short grain white rice and short grain brown rice and short grain. So none of these lines apply to long grain, whether that's Jasmine or Basmati or any type of long grain rice. It does not apply. So what you'll have to do if you do use long grain rice is you have to actually measure the water. It's annoying at first, but it's not a huge deal because what you'll do eventually is you'll just remember sort of where it falls closest to. You'll discover, oh, it's pretty close to the brown rice line, a little bit less, and then you just eyeball it from that point on. And you might be wondering what pre-washed rice is. Why is there a button for pre-washed rice? I just want to touch on that. Pre-washed rice is a type of Japanese rice that has been milled. So this is pre-washed rice right here. It uses a different kind of technology to mill so that the end result, you end up with less of that starchy residue that you would normally have to wash off. You can just put the rice in the pot, put the water, press go. It actually comes with a special rice measuring cup, specifically for pre-washed rice, which is so thoughtful of them. This cup is a little bit smaller than the regular cup. It's 171 milliliters as opposed to 180 milliliters for the regular rice cup. All right, and now for the important part, let's cook some rice. We're gonna start with the Jasmine rice first, and I'm gonna cook in each of these 2 rice cups, which by the way, 1 rice cup is not 1 measuring cup, it's 3/4 of a measuring cup. So when you see 1, 2, 3, like the lines in the rice cooker, they're talking about this cup and not a measuring cup, okay? Jasmine rice going in. And for each of these, I'm gonna rinse this in cold water twice. I'm also going to make sure that I get every last drop of water out, because when I add water, now this is not something I normally do when I just cook a pot of rice, but because we want to make sure that each pot of rice have exactly the same amount of water, I'm going to be quite anal about making sure I don't have an unidentified amount of leftover washing rice here. So for water, I'm going to use the ratio of 1 part rice to 1 1/4 part water, which is generally how I cook my Jasmine rice. And it happens to be the ratio that the Zojirushi machine recommends as well when using Jasmine rice. Let's cook it. It's preset to softer because I have found that that's what I want. And I have figured out based on the instructions manual that softer means that it cooks the rice more gently. It'll take a little bit longer. The heat is lower, so it's more like a simmer as opposed to a boil. And I found that that's how I end up liking my rice. And then watch this. Amazing! Another $20 that I would have paid for that feature right there. Okay, that one's going. Let's get this guy going. And then I'll get my stovetop rice going as well. And I want to mention that I do have a whole video on how to make the perfect rice using a pot on the stove. It's a little more complicated because now you're on your own, right? You gotta like man the pot or woman the pot yourself. So if you want to know all the tricks and tips, check out my video. I will link to that in the description below. So this one just clicked off and it took almost exactly 20 minutes for it to be done. And right about the same time, the stovetop pot is done. So these two takes about the same time, about 20 minutes. The only thing is, once this one clicks off, the rice is not done. You want to let it sit for at least another 5 minutes because there's still a lot of lingering moisture that still needs to work itself into the rice. This guy, on the other hand, because it's so smart, they have worked in that rest time into the cooker. So when it clicks and it says done, it is done. You can take it right away. Something interesting to note. So these ones are done. Okay, we're 20 minutes in. And I don't even see any steam. Like I'm only starting to see maybe barely a little whiff of steam coming out. So this takes a lot longer. But that is supposed to be the price you pay for better rice. So we'll find out. And after it has had 5 minutes, I'm gonna come in and fluff the rice. Oh, this one got a little bit of a brown on the bottom. A little bit brown. I mean, some people like the crunchy brown bottom, but this doesn't even get it brown enough for you to get that crunchy brown bottom. It's just brown. Oh, perfectly cooked. No burnt bottom. We are now 4 minutes away to completion, and it's been about 45 minutes. So in total, this rice cooker takes 50 minutes. 1 minute left. And the anticipation is killing me. And wait for it, wait for it. Allah! Oh, and like clean bottom, no sticking, no browned rice whatsoever at the bottom. So that's better. Okay, here's the important part. Adam is gonna come in, he's gonna dish some of this rice into 3 separate bowls, and I'm not gonna know which is which, and I'm going to determine which one I like the best. I'm so nervous. Nothing to say, it's rice, it's good, it's perfectly cooked. A little drier. The grains are more separated. These two, I cannot tell them apart. They are both, the grains are a little bit firmer than this one. They're like, this one's softer. Personally, I prefer this one. I also think that if I prefer this, I could get that with this. I just need more water. Otherwise, I can almost not tell them apart, which already makes me nervous because clearly the expensive one didn't make the kind of difference that would maybe worth $200 in the product. Of course, we're paying for the music and we're paying for everything, right? Should we reveal in this order, in the order I don't like? Red! This is the red pot. Okay, we have ruled out, so now it's down to this. Pot! Oh my god, I do like the Zoji better. Yay! Woohoo! This makes me so happy that I didn't spend $200 for worse rice. I'm so happy because if it had turned out that what I like is like the one from the stovetop or something, I would be so mad. So my theory is because it cooks at a slower, gentler pace, one, it loses less water through evaporation. So there's probably more water that ends up making it into the rice at the end of the day. I'm happy to hear because this machine was not made for Jasmine rice. It was created for Japanese rice, which is the second test that we're gonna do. And then we'll find out if I feel the same about Japanese rice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow instructions and rinse the rice until the water runs clear. And for Japanese rice, it's starchier, so it's important that you wash it more than jasmine rice. With jasmine rice, a couple of washes, it's totally fine. And then I'm going to add water to the white rice line, but then I'm going to measure how much water that is so that I can use that as a guideline for my red cooker. Gonna get out as much water as I can. So that's 2. That's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. Put this back in. Yeah, that's 1-to-1 minus about this much. Let's put that in. And now for the red cooker, because we previously discovered that the red cooker does come out a little bit drier, probably because it loses more water. So in order to try to level the playing field a little bit, I'm just gonna add a splash more water to this, just to get it to, you know, try to be more or less fair. I'm just gonna add just a smidge more water. There you go. It's defaulted on regular. That's what we're gonna stick with. Are you ready? Yay! I don't know why I feel the need to clap every time that tune comes on. It's such a celebratory sound. Let's reveal. Ta-da! Now, so far so good. Ooh. But we're not getting as much. Oh! Yay! Such perfect timing. Okay, so I'm still getting a tiny little bit of brown at the bottom of this pot, but not that much. But the bottom, the rice at the very bottom is drier, like right here. Yeah, like I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it's actually a little harder and dried. So I feel like the bottom heat is a touch too high. Like I'll show you this, like the sheet of rice. It's all kind of stuck together, hot, in a big sheet, because it's a little bit too cooked at the bottom. Ta-da! Ooh, a nice slow opening lid. Adam, come closer, take a look. The rice looks very different. Like the grains are just shinier, more, I don't know, it just looks more intact, doesn't look as wet as the other one. And they're like skinnier. I'm gonna take this out just so Adam can see it a little bit better. And hey, guess what? I can, because of the Stay Cool handle. Oh, nice. Yeah, the bottom is definitely not hard. No brownness whatsoever. So, see the bottom of this? Clean. No brownness. Rice is flaking, not overcooked, sticking to each other. So it looks better already. Let's check out the pot. So one thing I did do differently is I made sure I cooked this on really low heat just to try to mimic the speed at which this was going and the gentle heat. The bottom is a little bit sticky and a little bit browned, and that's just, I left it a little too long. But hey, that's the price you pay for cooking rice stovetop is sometimes you just leave things a little too long and there's no clear indication of when boop, it's done, right? You just kind of have to keep checking on it. So it's not burnt, but there's definitely a lot of sticking there, which you can turn into crunchy rice later if you want. It doesn't look as shiny as the zoji. Okay, here's the exciting part. I'll try not to look at these too much because I think if you look really close, you can kind of tell the difference. So I'll just kind of like casually go in with a spoon and it's cooked well. It's hard to say without anything to compare it to. So I'm going to just say that that's fine for now. This one has a bit of a better texture. Oh, it's so close though. This one is drier than the other two, and they feel like I can taste some hard bits in there. Comes down to these two. This one is the best. Yes, yes. Definitely, this one is the best. It's got a firmness to it that this one doesn't have. And it doesn't feel as wet. Like this one still feels a little bit wet around the outside, whereas this one feels like all the moisture is evenly distributed throughout. Yeah, no. Now that I'm like doing this again, this one is just, it's just not as good. Okay, I'm gonna review this one first. Ta-da! Red, yes. That was a relatively easy one because we knew when I was fluffing the rice that, okay, there's some uneven, hardened bits in the bottom. Now it comes down to these two. My guess is this is a zoji and this is the pot. We'll see if I'm right. Wow! So I did not waste all of my money on rice that could be achieved in a regular pot after all. So, what is the verdict? Is this worth it? And I think it depends on who you are. If you are, like most Thai people, only cook long grain jasmine rice, I feel like jasmine rice is a lot more forgiving. It's easier to get perfectly cooked jasmine rice. So maybe this isn't really worth it to you. However, I think there is a lot of value in the great user experience because this is something that you're going to use easily every day, multiple times a week for the rest of your life or as long as you're still eating rice, right? And for many Asians, that's every day for the rest of your life. So maybe if you're a 99% long grain rice kind of person, the best solution is to actually get something in between, something that's not quite as expensive but has a nice sealing lid, maybe a timer or maybe like a brown rice function, you know, a couple things that will actually be beneficial so you're not paying for all of these functions that you're never going to use, and then, you know, you give up the music and all that stuff, but, you know, that's okay. There's a compromise to be had somewhere, right? And there is actually a cooker that I can recommend if you want something in between. It's one that my brother uses, and he loves it, and so I'll link to that below if you want something, you know, in between. But if you cook short grain rice with any regularity at all, or maybe you would like the option to, or maybe you're the kind of person who cooks all sorts of different types of rice, then yes, I think that this really is worthwhile to have. And if you really think about it, for something that you will have for years and years and years, you will use this thousands of times. You spread the cost of $200 over that period of time, it really doesn't work out to be all that much. And I really do think that the result of the short grain rice coming out of these cookers is noticeably better. So I hope that was helpful, especially for those of you looking for a new rice cooker. And if you've got opinions, which I know you do, or you want to share your experience with different types of rice cooker, let us know in the comments below. I'm sure lots of people will find your experience helpful. And thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!